ladies and gentlemen, we're cussing and flipping the bird. That's what we're doing here on HIAC Talk Radio. No, you can't see us flipping the bird, so everybody will be safe. Nobody will be offended and upset. Either way, it's a new era in WWE? Question mark? I am the above average. Thank you, Craig. The above average comedian Dan Calchico. Welcome to HIAC Talk Radio. Our home away from home right now while we're still organizing. But hey, we're still on the air. VOC Nation Radio, thebradyhicks.com, iTunes. Look up VOC Nation Radio. Look for the HIAC Talk Radio. Episodes are all there. Stadium Journey, Obey the Puck, they're all there. The HIAC Talk Radio Network lives on. Follow me on Twitter at DanLaw83. And with me as always, sounding brand new and fresh from his new studio, Craig Liggeons. Craig, where do people follow you?
Hey, Dan, it's great to be here. Welcome to my new studio, my new laptop, my new microphone, and my new headset. All brand spanking new for 2019. And you can follow me, if you so choose, on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Liggeons, CraigLiggeons.
I can't tell you how beautiful this sounds. It's unbelievable. We sounded good before, but now we sound like we care. No, I'm just kidding. Now we sound like
we actually know what the hell we're doing.
I mean, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
the rest,
I'm following you.
Thank you.
The rest of that.
Yeah, the rest, I don't know. Since we took last week off, you have quite a backlog. So, ladies and gentlemen, Craig is going to take over the show to do a super duper version, kinda, of the Wrestling Historian. Craig, it's all yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Dan. If you wouldn't mind, just watch your step here as we get back into the Wayback Machine, back when titles were actually called belts, and back when territories ruled the airways of cable TV and sports entertainment was indeed professional wrestling. We're going all the way back to June 20th, a very special day, because in June 20th, 1957, James Ware was born. James Ware, who we all know affectionately by his given nickname of Coco B.
Oh, I didn't know that was his name.
James Ware turned 62 years old on June 20th.
Wow.
Coco B. Ware, for some reason in the WWE Hall of Fame, but in his career, one of the finest heels / baby faces in the history of Memphis wrestling. He never gets enough credit for that. Jerry Lawler has often credited him as being one of his favorite opponents of all time. He drew a great deal of money when he was Coco Ware and Sweet Brown Sugar in the Memphis territory. He actually, with Bill Dundee, participated in the very first scaffold match in professional wrestling history at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis in 1982. So Coco Ware is a part of history, and his version of the Brain Buster, or the Gourd Buster, or was called the Ghost Buster in the WWF, is in fact the best executed Brain Buster in the history of professional wrestling, for my money. But James Ware, Coco B, turned 62 on June 20th. Interesting, when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, which I still don't think he deserves to be in, but hasn't spoken or set foot in any WWE arena and has not heard from a single WWE official since his induction.
Interesting.
Not one.
Okay. Whose cereal did he piss in?
I know he brought it up. He was at a fan fest. I believe it was in Cleveland, with other members of Memphis wrestling legends, and he was interviewing. He said,
"Okay,
you're a WWE Hall of Famer." He goes, "Well, in name only, because I haven't heard a single word from them since his induction. No one's called him. He hasn't been invited to any events. Nothing."
Jeez. All right.
Okay. Sorry about that, Coke. June 21st, a very special day. June 21st, 1981, Dusty Rhodes won his second NWA heavyweight title, defeating Harley Race again this time in Atlanta, in the Omni, and that would actually be Dusty Rhodes' longest NWA title reign of his career. He held it for 2 months before losing it to Ric Flair for his Flair's first World Championship, but a second reign and started June 21st, 1981 in Atlanta. June 21st, 1982, Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop for his first North American heavyweight title. Now, this is very significant what's going to come on after. I'll describe later on in the segment, but Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop for the Mid-South North American heavyweight title. Also, in 2001, June 21st, 2001, was the first ever episode of WWE's Tough Enough.
Oh, wow.
Tough Enough, for all its warts and bumps, has actually given us quite a few talents over the years. Gave us one of the commentary. Geez, I forget his name now.
Josh Matthews.
Yes, Josh Matthews. He gave us Josh Matthews. Chris Nowinski, who, despite his short wrestling career, went on to become a leading authority on CTE, Lou Gehrig's disease, and concussion syndrome, and has spoken before White House and the government and the Supreme Court. But he got to start on Tough Enough. And our current NXT North American Heavyweight Champion got his start on Tough Enough. John Morrison, former multi-time WWE Tag Team Champion and Intercontinental Champion, was a gymnast who had never seen a wrestling match when he started on Tough Enough. And who could ever forget the superstar that the Tough Enough gave us, the one word is synonymous with pro wrestling, Maven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Maven.
Former WWE Hardcore Champion, but I digest. June 22nd, 1980, Ray Stevens and Jimmy Snuka defeated maybe the greatest tag team in NWA tag team history, the Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, in what I understand was an incredible match between four of the greatest workers of that era. But Ray Stevens and Jimmy Snuka defeated Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood in an amazing NWA title match. Those were two of the premier tag teams. Ray Stevens and Jimmy Snuka 2 years later would be part of one of the greatest angles in WWE history, but at the time, they were the NWA Tag Team Champions. June 22nd, 1996, Chris Jericho defeated Pitbull number 2 for the ECW television title, and that would be Jericho's first ever title in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I was at this show, and later on during the show, the Sandman caned Joel Gertner almost to death, and then he yelled on the house mic, "Missy," because he was with Missy Hyatt at the time, "bring out the guy that looks like he fell off a wedding cake." And Missy Hyatt brought out Bob Ortiz. And Ortiz got a huge pop because he came out in a tux, because Bob Ortiz always worked in a tux. And Joel Gertner was still lying dead in the ring. And he said, "Okay, Bob, now I want you to do the job we all know you can do, or you're also going to end up like this." And he whacked Gertner again. I don't think Gertner was expecting that whack. Right on his back. And right before Bob was going to introduce the next match, 10 minutes, but first, Missy, get him! And then Missy laid a big kiss on Bob. And I just remember that being there, and it was just a fun show. June 22nd, 1996. June 23rd, 1982. Remember when I said that Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop for the North American Heavyweight title, Dan?
Why, yes, I do.
Well, before that match, it was signed. Ted DiBiase was going to face the North American champion, who we assumed would be Bob Roop, in a loser leave town match. Well, as you know, Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop, so Ted DiBiase had to face the North American champion in a loser leave town match. But instead of Bob Roop, Ted DiBiase wound up facing his best friend, the best man at his wedding, Junkyard Dog. And the two gave great interviews talking about their friendship and about their real life. Ted being the best man at Dog's wedding, and Ted thinking that it was going to be Bob Roop, but he said he was not backing out. And Junkyard Dog even said in his interview, a very calm, uh, rational Junkyard Dog. He even asked Ted if we want to waive the stipulation for the loser leave town, and Ted said no. This was it. We'll have to live with the consequences, whatever happens. I'm wrestling my best friend, and Dog knows I love him, but this is for the North American Heavyweight title. And JYD said, well, that's why I respect Ted, because he knows this is a business, and we both want to be champs, so may the best man win. And they had their match on television on June 23rd, 1982, and Ted DiBiase fell out of the ring. He's trying to do a go behind on Dog and fell out of the ring. And Dog held the ropes open and was helping him back in the ring. Before he did, though, Ted reached into his tights, pulled out something, put on a black glove, knocked Junkyard Dog out with one punch, and covered him. The fans, stunned in shock. This was Ted DiBiase's heel turn. June 23rd, 1982, Ted DiBiase for the first time became a heel, and the professional wrestling world was on its ear. This would be akin to Rey Mysterio turning on Kofi Kingston. Fans couldn't believe it, and this went out throughout the After magazines, Wrestler, Inside Wrestling. Everyone was covering this because no one could believe what had happened. There was no cable back then, folks. So we didn't know. I didn't know what happened until I had to read about it weeks later. Ted DiBiase defeated Junkyard Dog for the North American Heavyweight title. Junkyard Dog had to leave Mid-South, and on commentary was Bob Roop, the man who lost to Junkyard Dog. He even put it over. He said, Ted DiBiase's a snake. Nobody can knock the Junkyard Dog out with one punch. How did he do it? What did I say about Ted DiBiase? Bob Roop, the biggest heel in the territory, was not only putting over Junkyard Dog, but putting over Ted DiBiase. And that was the heel turn. That's what made Ted DiBiase's career. Wow. Yeah, and when I met Ted DiBiase in person, he told me that story as to why Ernie Ladd was the booker. And Ted DiBiase went to Ernie Ladd's hotel room one night and said, I found your heel for JYD. And Ernie's like, great, Teddy, who is it? And Ted said, you're looking at him. And Ernie stopped for a second and went, yes, I am. And that's where began the Ted DiBiase. And Ted DiBiase now, as we know, is one of the great heels in professional wrestling history. But it started in 1982.
That's amazing.
1984. June 23rd, 1984. Because of the death of David Von Erich, the Texas heavyweight title was vacated. So there was a tournament, a 14-man tournament, to crown the new world-class Texas heavyweight champion. And Kerry Von Erich defeated Gino Hernandez to move on to the finals. But Gino had attacked Kerry after the match and injured him. So even though Gino Hernandez lost the match, because Kerry Von Erich couldn't continue, Gino Hernandez went to the finals. And in the finals for the world-class Texas heavyweight title, gorgeous Gino Hernandez defeated the NWA heavyweight champion Ric Flair in the finals of the Texas heavyweight title tournament.
Wow.
So yeah, reigning NWA champion Ric Flair was pinned by Gino Hernandez to be the Texas heavyweight champion.
Just those names, man.
Yeah.
Insane.
It is insane. That was back in 1984, where the NWA champion could compete in a tournament for the Texas heavyweight title. June 23rd, 1994, Clash of the Champions 27. WCW champion Ric Flair defeated WCW International champion Sting to unify both titles. So, all under one band, one big belt. Ric Flair was champion supreme. And earlier on that card, Johnny B. Bad defeated the United States champion Steve Austin by disqualification. I want you to remember that, Dan. Johnny B. Bad defeated stunning Steve Austin by disqualification.
That's not going to come up, later in a couple years, is it?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Dan, but because exactly 2 years later, on the exact same date, June 23rd, 1996, was the 4th annual King of the Ring, where Steve Austin won King of the Ring by defeating Jake Roberts in the finals and inventing the now classic, iconic Austin 316. Happened on that date, June 23rd, 1996. But guess who his first round opponent was, Dan?
No.
It was Mark Marrow, who was formerly known as Johnny B. Bad. Interesting, though, in that first round match, Steve Austin got his lips split open by Mark Marrow. After the match that Austin won right to the hospital, got 14 stitches, and came right back and won the tournament. Tournament was supposed to be won by Hunter Hearst Helmsley, but Helmsley took a curtain call and was no longer in the running, which opened the door for Steve Austin to win and utter his now famous 316 quote, and it started June 23rd, 1996.
Amazing.
Amazing. Staying on that date, June 23rd, 2002, was the 10th and final King of the Ring. In that King of the Ring tournament, Rob Van Dam pinned Chris Jericho to advance. But in the finals, Brock Lesnar defeated RVD to win the final King of the Ring and win a title shot at SummerSlam. On that same card, Kurt Angle defeated Hulk Hogan, which to the best of my knowledge is the first time ever Hulk Hogan tapped out.
Oh, wow.
Kurt Angle defeated Hulk Hogan with the ankle lock.
I'd have to take your word for it. I can't think of another time.
I can't think of it either, but Angle made Hogan tap. On that same day, June 23rd, 1 year later, 2003, Triple H defeated Kane, and Kane was unmasked for the first time. But that took place 16 years ago, June 23rd, 2003. On that same card, I just still think it's something that can't, if I listen the way in the under things that wouldn't happen now, Goldberg defeated Rodney Mack to end his 5-minute white boy challenge. Folks, for those of you who don't know, Teddy Long was the manager of Rodney Mack, and Teddy Long's theme song that he comes out to is Rodney Mack's theme song.
Oh, man.
So Rodney Mack is gone, but Teddy kept his theme song. And Teddy and Rodney Mack had every week on Raw would have a 5-minute white boy challenge where Rodney Mack would challenge a white boy to see if he could last 5 minutes in the ring with him. Well, this particular one, Goldberg took him up on his offer and destroyed Rodney Mack in under 5 minutes, and it was never heard from again. On that same date, June 23rd, 2006, because I know where I was, at the ECW Arena in the front row, as part of the PW clique, I watched Too Cold Scorpio defeat the late, great Trent Acid for the PWU Pro Wrestling Unplugged Heavyweight Championship.
Wow.
And Loudy was there somewhere.
Yes. For those keeping track, 2 weeks ago, we interviewed Chris Behringer for the ALS show, Brain Trust for OPW. But before that, we had an impromptu little mini reunion of the commissioners, or what would you call yourselves? Contestants for the commissioner?
The commissioner idol contestants.
Yes, and we will be elaborating on that soon. We just got to come up with a date and time for all of us to get together, but I need more of that. So after you're done listening to this, go 2 weeks back.
Yeah, but one of those, we were all at the same place at the same time on that particular day, June 23rd, 2006, to watch Too Cold Scorpio become the PW Pro Wrestling Unplugged heavyweight champion. June 24th, you might sense the theme here. The ninth King of the Ring was the site of the Kurt Angle Shane McMahon street fight. That's now legendary.
Yeah.
I think Kurt, or was it Kurt or Shane that broke their coccyx?
Angle broke his coccyx, his tailbone. He broke his freaking tailbone.
Yeah. During this match with Shane McMahon, which was absolutely brutal. And it shows how Shane was tough as nails, and Shane's still going for some reason today. But that match took place 18 years ago, June 24th. On that same card at King of the Ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho in a triple threat match. But afterwards, making his WWE debut, Booker T came out and chokeslammed Steve Austin through a table and broke Austin's hand by accident. But that was Booker T's WWE debut. Also on that same day, June 24th, 2006, the day after Pro Wrestling Unplugged held their show at the ECW Arena, the WWE ran its first ever ECW show in the ECW Arena.
Wow.
Yeah. Till very little fanfare. They had a good crowd. I mean, Kurt Angle wrestled RVD, but Paul Heyman couldn't even get the crowd on his side because they were so anti WWE. But that was WWE ran its first ECW show in the ECW Arena, June 24th, 2006. June 25th, 1976, one of the most important dates in professional wrestling history because I know exactly where I was. I was in the air-conditioned Philadelphia Spectrum watching on closed-circuit television the return match between Bruno Sammartino and Stan Hansen. Bruno's first match after getting his neck broke legitimately by Stan Hansen.
Yeah.
On that undercard was a boxer versus wrestler match where Andre the Giant took on the Bayonne Bleeder Chuck Webner. But all that was the undercard to the main event that took place in Tokyo, Japan, where Antonio Inoki fought Muhammad Ali. This, for all intents and purposes, and I say this every year, was the very first WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Because this was shown on closed circuit TV and in territories across the country, in wrestling territories across the country, there were wrestling cards. And afterwards, fans would watch. We're going to watch the Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki match, the wrestler versus boxer, which still to this day, 43 years later, steeped in controversy. Inoki was told he wasn't allowed to kick, wasn't allowed any submission moves on Ali. Ali, not wanting to, wary of a shoot, put those provisions in.
Yeah.
So Inoki kept going to his back and tried to goad Ali to join him on the canvas. And this went on for 15 rounds. The thing is, Inoki caught Ali about 3 or 4 times with the sweeping leg kicks. One of them even knocked Ali off his feet. So 15 rounds, and fans were booing legitimately, both in Japan and in Philadelphia, and probably all around the country, because this match was incredibly boring. But those leg kicks by Inoki caused a blood clot in Ali's left leg. They got so bad at one point during Ali's life, they were talking about amputation.
Oh my God.
Well, the left leg of Ali was so bad that it hindered his boxing career to the point where he couldn't push off to get punches out effectively. And it caused him to lose matches to guys that he would normally beat, like Leon Spinks, and have tough times with somebody like a Jimmy Young. But and they were all due to the kicks by Antonio Inoki. This is something that Ali revealed later. The problems with his left leg and the blood clot that ensued from his match with Inoki. But that was the first wrestler versus boxer match. And it took place June 25th, 1976. June 25th, 1995, also right back in the Philadelphia Spectrum. The King of the Ring, won by Mabel, of all people. And there was also the Jerry Lawler versus Bret Hart Kiss My Foot match.
Yeah. Infamous.
Yes. Infamous. And I didn't see all the backstage stuff because I was at the Spectrum watching it, but they didn't show us back then what was going on, so I didn't see the after Bret made Jerry kiss his foot and then made Jerry kiss his own foot, Jerry Lawler went back and threw up, when in fact he just ate some saltines and drank a Coke and just spit that out. So that was a throw up. Yeah. And in a very dark day, June 25th, 2007, the bodies of Chris Benoit, Nancy Benoit, and son Daniel were found dead in Atlanta, in their home in Atlanta, Georgia. And Raw paid tribute to Chris Benoit that night, June 25th, 2007, obviously before knowing the full details of their deaths. But June 25th, 2007, we lost the entire Benoit family.
Yeah.
June 26th, the very next day, born on that day, and happy 77th birthday, born in Trenton, New Jersey, was one James Morrison.
Oh.
Who you know as J.J. Dillon. Born in Trenton, New Jersey, June 26th, and he turned 77. June 26th, 1978, was a big day in wrestling for me, because that was the day the Yukon Lumberjacks defeated Dino Bravo and Dominic DeNucci for the WWF Tag Team title in Madison Square Garden. On that same card, Andre the Giant and Ivan Putski were wrestling Superstar Billy Graham and Luke Graham, Crazy Luke Graham and Superstar Billy Graham. In wrestling terms, they were related. Superstar was the nephew of Crazy Luke Graham. But the name of their tag team, Dan? The Golden Grahams.
Jesus.
Because they were both blonde. And I remember this match from the After magazines because it made me want to go to Madison Square Garden, because you never know what could happen in Madison Square Garden. Andre the Giant and Ivan Putski were facing the Superstar and Luke Graham, and Ivan Putski got injured, and he was carried back to the dressing room by Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant came back and was going to take on both Grahams himself, but instead he was joined by Dusty Rhodes, who showed up and finished the match with Andre the Giant. And I read this in the After magazines, and I was out of my chair because he was my favorite wrestler and still is at the time.
I mean, that's as superstar as you're ever gonna get of a tag team.
And he wasn't even announced. He just comes out of nowhere.
Just shows up.
Just shows up at Madison Square Garden of all places. And this is when he was the Florida heavyweight champion. Yeah. But unbelievable. June 26, 1978. June 26, 1983. The Sheiks, Crusher Blackwell and Ken Patera, defeated Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell for the AWA Tag Team titles. That's significant because that ended the 2-year reign of Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell, the longest reigning tag team champions in AWA history. It ended June 26, 1983 by Crusher Blackwell and Ken Patera. 2 years. And that same day, June 26, 1992, we said goodbye to the original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers. Buddy Rogers, who had already signed to face another Nature Boy, Buddy Landel, when he claimed to be he had one match left in him. But before that match could take place, a month later, June 26, 1992, Buddy Rogers passed away. Earlier that same day, Buddy had 3 strokes
Oh, God.
during the day, and he died later on that night.
Jeez.
Yes. Winding down, home stretch. June 27th, 2011 was the infamous, now iconic, CM Punk shoot promo that he did at the end of that particular night's Raw. After John Cena had lost a match to, get this, R-Truth, CM Punk took the house microphone and gave a promo where he talked about, John, I don't even have a problem with you. I actually like you. I actually like you more than most of the guys in the back. I just don't like the fact that everyone thinks that you're the best when you're not. And I bust my ass every day for this company, and I know I'm the best in the world. The first time that phrase was coined, in that ring, on this mic, even doing commentary, no one does it better than me.
I always go back to when he goes in his doofus son-in-law.
Yeah, and the only thing you're better at me, John, is kissing Vince McMahon's ass. Okay, and we could think that after he finally dies, the company will be in good hands, but no, it's going to go to his idiot daughter and his doofus son-in-law.
That's it.
Yeah, great line. It even said, "Hi, Cole Cabana, how you doing?" And he was saying, speaking about Vince McMahon, this company does an anti-bully campaign, and then his mic shuts off. I still want to hear that story.
Oh, yes, I do. And he's never told it.
No.
Oh, I've been anticipating for, what is it, 8 years now?
Yes. But CM Punk did his shoot promo June 27th, 2011. Wow. June 28th, 1998, another important date which will live in infamy. King of the Ring. Did I mention a theme here, Dan?
What?
June 28th, 1998, Pittsburgh, PA, King of the Ring.
Oh, yeah.
Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell. Enough said.
Yeah, no, really, there's no need to elaborate.
No. And Mick Foley has elaborated on this match many a time. When he signed my copy of Have a Nice Day and Foley is Good, he was doing an interview with Marty Moss Coane here locally on a radio show called Radio Times. And he said, I'm convinced that the guys that have watched that King of the Ring match with The Undertaker over and over are the ones that don't have girlfriends.
Yeah.
And I told him, and he signed it, I have watched it over and over and over, and I do have a girlfriend. And get this, she's watched it over and over. So
ha, Mick. Ha!
Yeah. So take that, Foley.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. So that was an important date, June 28th, 1998. June 29th, 1986. Another important date in professional wrestling, Dan, because that was the day that the AWA stripped Stan Hansen of the AWA heavyweight title.
Yep.
Stan Hansen, the AWA heavyweight champion, had signed a contract to appear in Japan for All Japan and defend the AWA title for Giant Baba. Vern Gagne, though, wanted Hansen to drop the belt back to Nick Bockwinkel. And Stan Hansen, who had made no secret that his loyalty was always to Baba over Vern.
Yep.
Baba was the one who gave him his big break. Said he wanted to honor his commitment. And Baba and All Japan had already advertised that the AWA champion, the AWA title, was going to be defended in July. And Vern stripped him of the title. And Stan kept the belt, defended it in Japan to honor his request to Baba, and sent the AWA belt back to Vern, mailed it back to Vern. But first, he ran over it with his truck.
Not only did he, what I love about that is allegedly is not only did he run over it, but he made sure he backed back up to run it back over.
Oh yes, he did, because when Nick Bockwinkel appeared with that belt on television, you could clearly see the dents, the horizontal dents on this belt, and this was the biggest belt in professional wrestling.
Yeah,
the AWA belt, and it was designed that way on purpose to eclipse both the NWA and the WWF title belts. But you can clearly see not the tire marks, but the fact that it was a clear path on the belt.
The road map went right through the belt.
Yes, and it was thankfully it was only seen on television a limited amount of time before a replacement belt was made, and that replacement belt would later go on the waist of Curt Hennig, who would defeat Nick Bockwinkel. Ironically enough, it was Stan Hansen who wanted to face Curt Hennig for the AWA title, who asked Verne to place him against Curt Hennig, even suggesting I'll give him a non-title win to start a program. But that ended the June 29th, 1986, when Verne Gagne stripped Stan Hansen of the AWA title. That ended the inglorious AWA title reign of Stan Hansen, something that he's still not happy about. But it happened June 29th, 1986. The AWA stripped Stan Hansen of the title, but not the belt. June 30th, a couple of birthdays. The aforementioned Terry Funk. Did we mention him before? Or maybe we didn't.
Last week we did, yeah.
Last week we did.
I'm sorry.
June 30th.
The last episode we did, not last week. 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. I apologize. Okay. June 30th is we will mention this guy later on. 34, turning 34 was Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
Had his 34th birthday on June 30th. On that same day, turning 75. No longer middle-aged and crazy, but a silly senior citizen, Terry Funk, turned 75 on June 30th. Still going.
And I think he was on his fourth retirement.
Yeah.
At that point. And
yeah.
I remember, it's funny because I remember that the Beyond the Mat movie came out and it was all about him retiring, and then about 2 months, it wasn't 2 months, but very shortly after the movie came out, because, they film it and it takes a year or two to post-production, he was in WCW. So
yeah.
It's very short-lived.
Very short-lived, and most of his retirements are short-lived.
Hold on, I'm sorry, Craig. I just wanted to add, the only man I've seen kicked by a horse that didn't sell it.
Yeah.
Okay? It's an amazing, and I'm pretty sure it's a Thunder. And it's a hardcore match between the late, great Chris Candido and Terry Funk. And these dudes fight onto the back of a truck and drive out to this farm. I say that's a ways away from the arena, but it was less than 50 yards because it was, it was bum F wherever the hell they were. And they get into this horse barn and they're fighting, and Terry Funk drops Candido with his patented sit-down pile driver, and it freaks the horse out, and the horse just kicks him not once, twice, real quick, to where Terry, okay, and he moved, because the man grew up around horses and he lives on a farm, so it's not like he probably been kicked before, but this is on camera. No sells the kick, picks up Candido to get out of the barn, and you just hear him go, "You goddamn horse!" It's one of the best things that he straight up no-sold that dude.
Oh my god! Classic funk.
Absolutely.
And I two things, ironic things. 2 days ago, I actually saw over the weekend. I actually saw a guy with a Funk U University shirt.
Oh, nice.
That was nice. And the ironic part, Terry Funk is 75. He won his first and only NWA heavyweight title in 1975.
I know we've talked many times and still do about the current product and now how being a world champion doesn't necessarily make sense. And the first name that pops up to my mind is Roddy Piper. Never was a world champion.
No.
But how Terry Funk was only a one-time champion says all you need to know about that decade or two of wrestling, that Terry Funk only needed to be the champion once. You had Dusty, Rick, Harley Race, Bockwinkel, San Martino, Hogan. You had enough time where Funk was only a one-time champion in 2 decades is insane to me.
And it shows you, Dan, the gravity and how much weight that the NWA heavyweight champion carried, because you're an NWA champion for life, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And even if you're billed everywhere as a former NWA heavyweight champion, that was, even after only 5 days, Tommy Rich still billed everywhere, booked everywhere. If you want to sell out an arena, former NWA heavyweight champion Tommy Rich.
Yeah. It's insane.
Coming in.
And that's what I mean about...
no one could ever take that away from him.
No, and that's what I mean about when the NWA was purchased by Corgan and they did this whole thing and people were like, wow, who cares about the NWA? In wrestling, that still means something.
Yes.
The NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, that is still a thing where people were like, well, he's the NWA World. Dude, when he came to Nova, when Nick Aldis came to Nova Pro and he wrestled Isaiah Frazier, first of all, look up Isaiah Frazier, everybody listening, first of all. Second of all, the match was spectacular because you had Isaiah Frazier, who is an amazing talent, but you also have the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Nick Aldis. And on top of that, I had never seen that belt in person. And I'm telling you, and I've known you've seen it, and you'll understand what I'm about to say, and you can take it back from me here. I'll shut up. Is that belt has an aura about it separate from whoever's carrying it.
Dan, I cannot agree with you more. I've never bought a replica belt, but the only belt I ever wanted was the NWA belt.
Unbelievable.
Because the end of that sight of that belt on a wrestler made your career. That meant you were. I mean, it sounds cliche. It means you were the man. Yeah. And whenever I saw anyone other than Harley Race have it, I knew it was serious. Yeah. It wasn't real to me that Dusty Rhodes was champion until I saw him with the belt on. Till I saw him with that belt. That meant it was real. When Tommy Rich had that belt, even for 5 days, that picture is never going to get out of my head because you have the belt. You have the NWA belt. When Kerry Von Erich held it.
Oh, God, yeah.
You see anyone other than Harley Race with that belt or Jack Briscoe with that belt, it was serious. Yeah. When Ric Flair held it for the first time, it's like, the first thing I thought, Dan, man, he really is that good. Yeah. If he's the NWA, if he's got that belt, if he's the NWA champion, oh my God.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
And it is indeed. But happy belated birthday, Terry Funk, who won his first and only NWA title, December 21st, 1975, and is 75 years old. Speaking of one-time or incredible debuts, June 30th, 2003, in her first ever WWE match, Mrs. Robert Irvine won a women's battle royal to become the WWE Women's Champion. Gail Kim made her WWE debut June 30th, 2003, and won the World's Women's Championship.
I will debate you and say it's probably Mr. Gail Kim.
Mr. Gail, yeah, I'm sorry, he's Mr. Gail Kim. She will never be Mrs. Robert Irvine.
No.
Despite his tremendous build.
You've met them because of MMR, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I met him. I haven't met her. I was there when he was there. I wasn't there when she was there.
I just love that they begged that Preston Steve, please bring her in, and he was like, I have a surprise for you.
Crazy. Speaking of first, on that same date, June 30th, 2008, the aforementioned CM Punk won his first ever WWE title.
Yeah.
When he cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase, defeating Edge, after Edge had taken a massive beating from Batista. So June 30th, 2008, Punk won his first WWE title. July 1st, 1986, know exactly where I was, because it's in my backyard. July 1st, 1986, right here in Philadelphia, Veterans Stadium, which no longer exists, was the site of the first ever the first stop on the Great American Bash Tour.
What?
Outdoor stadiums throughout the summer of 1986 hosted the Great American Bash.
I didn't know the Vet was the first stop. I had no idea.
First stop. First one.
Wow.
Went to Cincinnati, Riverfront Stadium. Went to Charlotte, Liberty Stadium. Went to Maryland. Oh God, what was it? Landover Park.
I'll get it for you in a second. Yeah.
But the first stop of the Great American Bash was in Veterans Stadium. Main event: Ric Flair versus Hawk, of all things, and Animal and Dusty Rhodes fought Arn and Ole Anderson in a steel cage. And it was the first of the Magnum TA versus Nikita Koloff Best of 7 series for the United States Heavyweight Championship.
Unreal.
And that was the opening. I remember every WCW program, they showed the same promo of the Road Warriors talking, Hawk talking about his match with Flair and Animal. And so it went like Hawk said to Ric Flair, "I'm taking it to town with you, punk. It's only right that we do it at night." So Ric Flair, "I'm taking it to town with you." And Animal grabs the mic. "And Ole Anderson, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, you stick your nose in my brother's face. In the brothers match, I'll break your stinking face. And Ric Flair, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes for nothing." And Ellering takes it, "Nothing, Flair, nothing."
Wow.
And yeah, that was a promo. 5 years later, Dan.
That's insane.
Yeah. July 1st, 1991, 5 years after the Great American Bash Tour, where Ric Flair defended the NWA title in every single match, only losing it to Dusty Rhodes, and before regaining it during the Great American Bash Tour. 5 years after that, July 1st, 1991, Ric Flair, while he was the reigning, defending, undisputed NWA WCW champion, Ric Flair signed a contract with the WWF. On that same day, it must be something about that date. July 1st, 1999, Chris Jericho signed his contract with the WWE.
Oh yeah, must be the day.
Yeah, it's a weird day, but Jericho, of course, no compete clause, so he couldn't debut for the WWE until September. Flair, though, was different, because July 1st, 1991, he signed a contract with the WWF while he was the NWA champion, and July 2nd, the very next day, 1991, WCW fires Ric Flair.
That's still one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, do you want to tell it?
Well, I'll tell it, and then you fill in any holes I might miss. No pun intended. Which is, he's like, him and Jim are, they've been in the outs since Jim Hurd was the guy I was talking to, since he joined when he was on the booking committee and when he was trying, it stemmed from when Ric Flair was on the booking committee and they pulled the ratings out of the ass, and then he immediately fought him on everything and finally left the booking committee. It's just a bunch of stuff that built up, and he called Vince like, all right, I've had enough. I'm coming for you, please. They sign him, and Jim, Rick calls Jim, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Okay, well, yeah, bring me the belt. No, I'm not bringing you the belt. Now, still, in the early 90s, I don't know when this deposit thing was broken. I don't know the year. I'm assuming 94, when the NWA was in turmoil. But in those days, when you were the NWA champion, you still put a deposit down. You
$25,000.
Exactly. And you took the belt, and when you were done and you gave the belt back, you got your deposit back. And Jim Hurd said something to the effect of, that's my belt. I've sent Doug Dillinger over to get it. And Rick was like, I put money down on this. This is mine, dipsh. I can't say the word. This is mine. You're not getting a damn thing. And that's the way he left it. And he left with that belt. And this is the part I bring up. And I don't care either way. I'm not like, Vince is a piece of crap. Eric's a piece of crap. This was entertaining as all get out on either side of it. Everybody talks about Eric Bischoff and how dare he bring Medusa in and throw in the WWF Women's Championship in the trash can and bringing it on TV. Vince did it first with the NWA Championship and brought when Rick showed up and was introduced by the only man that could introduce him into the company, Bobby the Brain Heenan. He was recognized as the real world heavyweight champion, Ric Flair. And that was what started years later, the whole thing with the Monday Night Wars. It's so good. It could be a movie just that year alone in wrestling.
It could indeed, Dan. And everything you said, I really can't expound upon. I'll try. Jim Hurd was the cause of, and never the solution to, most of WCW's problems. Jim Hurd wanted to shave Ric Flair's hair, shave his head, call him the Gladiator. Wanted him to go a completely different direction. And when Flair would get somebody, wrestle someone like a Brian Pillman, and get the highest ratings of any WCW Saturday Night match in history, Hurd wasn't satisfied, wanted to do something else. He always wanted to break up the Midnight Express. He hated them for some reason. But all these amazing wrestlers and amazing ideas, and he's surrounded by Ric Flair, Jim Cornette, Kevin Sullivan, the brightest minds in the business. And they had to take orders from a guy who was running a Pizza Hut 4 years earlier. So he... when Flair owned the belt, and he said, Doug Dillinger can come over here, but nothing's happening. And he took the belt with him, and took the belt with him to WWE, and he defended it. He wore it on WWE television. He wore it to house shows. When he finally did debut in September of that year, 91. And because Hurd wanted Flair to drop the belt to Lex Luger at the Great American Bash pay-per-view coming up. Flair, of course, never wanted to job to Luger. And then he said, okay, well, you drop it to Barry Windham. And Flair, who always loved Barry Windham, was not okay with it, but he was okay with dropping it to Barry Windham. And Hurd changed his mind again and said, no, actually, I want you to drop it before the pay-per-view and have the match between Windham and Luger for the title. And Flair said, okay, now I'm done. That's it. The Barry Windham-Luger match did go on, as Hurd wanted, but it had to be explained why Ric Flair wasn't there. And they had to have a new belt made to crown the NWA WCW heavyweight title, because Flair, like we said earlier, took the belt with him because he owned it. Hurd was not going to give him his $25,000 back, so if I don't get the $25,000, you don't get your belt. And Flair's, and that belt has been. We talked about the NWA belt being synonymous with heavyweight champions. That big gold belt is synonymous with Ric Flair. Anyone else wearing it or holding it just look absolutely stupid. Even when it was Austin or when it was Angle, it belonged with Ric Flair because that is Ric Flair's belt. Staying on that date, July 2nd, 2001. Speaking of WCW and people making their debuts, July 2nd, 2001, Dan, was the debut of the new WCW. This is after the WWE had acquired WCW. The no-compete clauses were lifted, so for the first time, WCW wrestlers were wrestling on WWE, and of all people, it was Booker T and Buff Bagwell.
Well, they got a half right.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Buff.
Nope. Buff, who pretty much shot himself or ruined his career from this one match alone. Fans chanting boring. Booker T, who had his own ring rust, as great as Booker T was in the ring, had to deal with his own ring rust and wasn't physically able to carry a Buff Bagwell. And so that match will always live in infamy. And I was embarrassed because I wanted, finally, because I've been a huge WCW mark like you, and I always thought that they had the superior product going all the way back to the NWA, and now they had a chance to show it, and we had to do it with Buff Bagwell.
First chance they got, we got Buff Bagwell.
Yep. It's like, I'm going to give you the best of the Three Stooges. Here's Shemp.
Here's Shemp. Here's Joe.
Yes. Give me the best of the Baldwins. Okay, here's Steven. Nah.
I'll take Daniel. No.
Okay. In concert tonight, the Jacksons. Here's Tito. Playing the triangle.
The triangle is Tito.
Yes. And today in wrestling history, Dan, is a huge day in professional wrestling because a career was ended when it shouldn't have. Today, Dan, July 3rd, 2006, driving from an ECW show in Huntington, West Virginia, to a Raw taping right here in Philadelphia, Rob Van Dam and Sabu were arrested for speeding.
Yeah.
They were stopped by the cops, and when the cop approached the vehicle, by the time he got to the car, he was already high from the marijuana smoke. RVD was arrested. He had 18 grams of marijuana on him and 5 Vicodin.
Wow.
Sabu had some marijuana and some pills of unknown origin. They never exactly said what kind of pills that Sabu had. But both men were arrested. Both men were detained. And Rob Van Dam, who was the current, reigning, defending WWE and ECW heavyweight champion, he lost both belts in 48 hours. He lost the WWE title that night to Edge, and he would lose the ECW title. I forget to who, but that
who cares?
Yeah, but it all happened today, 13 years ago, 2006, when Rob Van Dam and Sabu were arrested after on their way to a Raw show. Had they been clean, who knows how long Rob Van Dam would have been champion. We were so excited and enamored because finally Rob Van Dam, the guy that we've known for years, was legitimately one of, if not the best wrestler in the entire world, finally showing on the main stage. So not only being the WWE champion, but the ECW champion at the same time, cut short because of his love of weed. So who knows what might have been. And his career has been forever tainted since. And that, Dan, is what you call the wrestling historian.
What a show it was. And my name is Dan. We were laughing at the beginning of the last day because all the stuff that is left on the cutting room floor that make us laugh. My name is Dan. That is officially how. Not only do we have a new audio file added to the intro of the show, from now on I'm introducing myself as my name is Dan. My name is Dan, not Rob.
Hello, my name is Dan.
Hello, my name is Dan, not Rob. So this past week, I guess I don't want to say a lot at first, but while we were off, it was announced that in charge of SmackDown, executive producer, I don't know what label these guys are getting, but in charge of SmackDown is Eric Bischoff. In charge of Raw is one Paul E. Dangerously, Paul Heyman. And the effects were taking place right away this past Monday. You had a segment where two very large men crashed through a wall of electronics and was electrocuted, and an S-bomb was dropped. Which I thought was used in a good area, because it worked to the point where people who are casuals were asking people like me and Craig, that was real. He was really upset. He cursed. And I'm like, and that's why that happened. And I am not talking disparagingly of this person. That is an awesome reaction to something that's obviously not real. that blew me away. I'm like, hey, they still got it. We had a pregnancy cuck angle start. I guess that's what we're calling this. I don't know. Did you see that segment on Raw with Maria and Mike Kanellis during the match?
Yes.
Do you want to try to make sense of this?
That had Paul E. written all over it. Don't touch me. No, I'm pregnant. I was like, Beulah? Is that you?
Beulah. Why do you care? It's not yours.
It's yours. Stevie jumping up and down. I'm an uncle.
It's Tommy's. Tommy's.
What my favorite part of that segment was, it's not yours. Every man in the audience stood up and said, it's me!
Yeah.
Hey, it's me!
And most of the people, no, it's not.
No, it's not. But yeah, the pregnancy angle, the S-bomb dropped, the shoot angle aspect of it, really, you could see it. I mean, it was a markedly different Raw. Even if I hadn't known of the, I can't say the same for SmackDown, but it's a markedly different Raw. The tone was different. Even if I hadn't known that, if you did know that Paul Lee was in charge anymore, this was definitely a different Raw than previous Raws.
I want to say that the gentlemen who stole the show last week on Raw were the Street Profits. They were used very sparingly, but they were used brilliantly, and it looked like two guys that were having a good time with a position they had. And it showed through those two little segments they were in with Paul and the backstage interview segments. That stole the show for me. I do think that was Raw better this week? It was a good episode. Am I upset about the cursing? I don't care. I don't care really what you put on my TV if I'm entertained and you're not murdering an animal. Like, I have very low standards is what I'm saying. It was used sparingly, and I appreciate that. And it wasn't an automatic 0 to 60 attitude error, because the stockholders would not be happy with that. I don't know how they're going to be happy with as long as the ratings are coming in, I guess they don't care. But I didn't mind it so much. SmackDown, I don't know. I sat on it for a day. It was the weaker show this week. The main event was fantastic. I did like the stuff that they're doing with Nikki and Alexa disappearing after Nikki was thrown into a match with Bayley. Manipulation stuff again. I like where that was going. But as a whole, the Samoa Joe, Kofi Kingston segment, brilliant. And again, sprinkled in was the middle finger. Wasn't thrown in my face or anybody's face. It just happened. It got a pop, and they went back to it. thought it was fine, but I did think SmackDown was a bit weaker for it. And I don't want to say I'm more worried about it, because I'm not really worried about it. Eventually someone's going to figure something out. That's the thing about the WWE. They always figure it out, folks. Every time. The 80s, the 90s during the Monday Night Wars, they will figure it out again when the fire lights up. Trust me. But I want to say I'm more worried about that show than I am about Raw when it goes to Fox. But overall, I think Raw blew SmackDown out of the water.
Most definitely. I like the fact that Ricochet got a main event match 2 weeks in a row.
Hell yeah. Oh, dude! Overshadowed! The club is fully back together.
The club is back, finally. 3 years late, but there they are.
Well, it's like it's like the NWO and the Wolfpack merging in 99, but arguably slightly better.
Yeah, but they could have. I wish that Gallows and Anderson hadn't threatened to leave before they could finally put them together, because it could have been done a while ago. But the Ricochet getting the main event 2 weeks in a row was one of my highlights. I don't know. I don't understand. They're pushing Nikki beating Bayley, and then Nikki beating Natalya, and sowing the seeds. Well, why it should be you I'm facing, Nikki, and then having Nikki lose. I don't get that. I just thought it killed her momentum.
Oh, I get it. Oh, trust me, I understand. I'm still waiting. I really feel that's a long, drawn-out thing that's going to... I really feel it's eventually going to lead to Nikki being the... what's the word I'm looking for? The catalyst? Or the one that's... What's the word I'm looking for? The one starting it. Help me.
Oh, the instigator.
Instigator, thank you. I need help with words. I really feel Nikki is going to be the instigator on that one eventually.
Okay. But the thing that stuck out for me, other than the Street Profits, who hopefully is in line for a huge push, because I'm loving his promos every week, because they're not scripted, it feels like. Ali. I think he's killing it.
Oh my God. Dude, the commercial from the week before,
mm-hmm.
That promo this week, and him largely staying out of it other than, it's a great build, man. I really hope that doesn't fall flat, because that's
the same with Aleister Black. They're doing such a great job of,
you're right,
bringing them along and showing us their characters first before we see them in the ring. But I hope that there is a payoff, because these are tremendous talents that deserve the spotlight that Ricochet has now. That's what Ali and Aleister deserve.
Absolutely.
And I hope they get it. But those were my highlights of the past two shows.
Now, more importantly, you have to know by now, not you, Craig, other people listening, that it will not be overnight if this is in fact the direction they're going in. However, it was at least different. And sometimes when something's stale, different is just good enough to wet the palate again. So hopefully we'll see how that goes. It kept me entertained this week, because the last 2 weeks I barely watched. I was hanging on a long time, and I was just like, I think I'm going to put it on my laptop and do something else. So keeping track, watching matches, but not really listening to what was going on. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
You can't, if they try the Attitude Era thing, I don't know how that's going to go over. I don't care either way. In fact, if it offends more people, I'm happier, because people getting offended makes me smile, apparently. That bothers me. The Little Mermaid can't be black. Oh. No? Well.
No.
I hate to tell you this.
Yes, and Nike can't have American flags on their backs of their shoes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Another discussion for another time. It's
Yes.
why I have a problem with Independence Day in the first place, because it's all about advertisement, buying and selling, and not, Independence Day and blowing stuff up with fireworks.
Yes. It should be about the movie Independence Day starring Bill Pullman.
Yes, completely. They beat them with a virus. That's important. We will not vanish into the night.
We'll not go down without a fight.
We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day. Greatest president living today.
Yes, greatest living president. And Will Smith punched an alien.
Welcome to Earth.
Knocked it out. Yes, without any, form or education or comprehension of this alien being that could probably kill you just by looking at you or viewing his tentacles. But yeah, we'll just knock him out with one punch.
Also, this past week, Fyter Fest happened.
Yes, please expound on that, Dan.
It was okay. Double or Nothing was also. It wasn't the greatest show I ever saw ever. I liked AEW Double or Nothing. It was a good debut show. All In was a good catalyst of what could happen. I will say this: the Battle Royal, and I'll stand by this a month later, was a complete huge cluster F. Don't ever do that again. It was definitely WCW, NWA. We're going to put 14 rules on top of one rule to make it seem more complicated, but it didn't really change anything. But Fyter Fest was a good show. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't the most amazing show. It was a good wrestling show. That being said, I tuned out totally on Nakazawa. I don't get that at all. Sema and Christopher Daniels had a great match. It was probably too quick. Christopher Daniels doesn't need to have a match less than 15 minutes, ever. Period. I don't know why anybody would ever do that. Allie and Leva Bates was good. People are complaining about Leva Bates and Peter Avalon doing the librarian shh thing, and I'm like, it's no worse than anything else being thrown down your throat in WWE TV. It's fine. Calm down. Adam Page, Jimmy Havoc, Jungle Boy, and MJF. Great 4-way match. Adam Page is a superstar.
Yeah, he is.
Period, bar none. End of story. And if you didn't know him before, you're going to certainly know him once the show takes off. He's unbelievable. But on top of that, and I know there's 3 more matches to... You know what? I'll come back to that. Cody versus Darby Allin was a 20-minute slugfest. Do I think Cody Rhodes is as good as his father? No. Do I think he's a good wrestler? He's freaking excellent. Cody Rhodes is a chip off the old block. Period. That match was great. What the people are taking away from it was the unprotected chair shot onto Cody. It's weird. I'm going to have this weird stance where I'm going to be on the fence, and I know that you're not allowed to have that kind of opinion in the world today. You have to pick right or left, because that's what I was told. I don't mind the chair shots. Get your hands up, man. And I don't mind being the jerk. Well, you never wrestled, you don't know. Head trauma is bad. Any sport. Head trauma is bad. We just talked about the anniversary of the murder-suicide of Benoit. And losing woman, Nancy Benoit, and Daniel Benoit. Why did that happen? Because of over and over and over again head trauma. There's a lot of gray area to that situation, and it was head trauma. I worry about people that I know who take unprotected hair. No, I'm not lecturing. How dare you? Don't ever do this again. It's not my place. It's not good. Again, because head trauma is bad, folks. But it looked sweet. It was a good headshot. And he took the chair and busted his head wide open. Got 11 stitches, and he was fine. He might not be as lucky next time. But the spot that I want to talk about is the coffin drop by Darby Allin onto the apron. Again, I know I don't have to press this because nobody thinks I'm a wrestler, but I have to say, I'm not a wrestler, but I'm going to say that the apron moves are stupid.
Okay.
Somebody's going to die. Somebody is going to die or become permanently handicapped because of those apron moves. I know Darby Allin's done it 100 times. It looked like a plane crash. Like, it looked amazing. Amazing. Plane crashes aren't amazing. What's the word I'm looking for? It looked spectacular.
Unsettling?
It looked spectacular and unsettling at the same time. It made a thud. Apron moves are going to shorten your career, but yeah, we can argue about Jim Cornette being right about Sonny Kiss, wrestling. I don't agree with him on modern wrestling. I just don't agree with his stance on modern wrestling. And that's fine, and he's allowed to have that stance because, I don't know if you know this, he's been in the business for 40 years. That doesn't make him right. However, about the apron moves, I will agree with him on. That's stupid. However, Darby Allin's excellent, and that match is entertaining as hell. I believe, Craig, you can still watch it on Bleacher Report.
Okay.
You can watch replay because it was a free show anyway, so I think they'll have that up for a while. The Elite versus the Lucha Brothers, and it was Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers and the Laredo Kid. Great six-man tag. Main event was Jon Moxley and Joey Janela. Joey Janela was a main event on a major wrestling company in 2019. What else do I have to say?
No, nothing. I never thought I'd hear those words.
That's amazing. And if you're listening to this on the website at the VOC Nation Radio Network, thebradyhicks.com Blog Talk Radio link, you will see one of the pictures that displays during this episode is a shot of Joey Janela jumping off of a ladder, doing an elbow drop onto Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, who was formerly known as Jon Moxley, on a set of tables on the outside of the ring. That's an iconic shot, and if this works, AEW as a whole will become a catalyst iconic shot for years to come. The biggest takeaway, and this should be the biggest takeaway for all wrestling companies everywhere, and all wrestling fans everywhere, Maxwell Jacob Friedman is the best heel in wrestling today. There's no discussion past that point.
Amen.
It just isn't. There's none. Zero. Nobody you can give me right now on the indies. We can talk about better wrestlers, sure. Who we think, that's subjective. Well, this is subjective too, but I'm hard pressed to argue with me on this one. We talk about better wrestlers, sure. Better matches, absolutely. The best heel. WWE, AEW, Indies, New Japan, the best heel in wrestling today is MJF. And I don't think it's a far reach for me to say that it sounds like somebody in the mid-'80s cutting a promo when he talks.
No.
It's fast. It sounds like an old studio interview, the old NWA Saturday Night days, the old WWE Superstars days, and I'm talking about the early days. It sounds like that somebody plucked him out of the mid-'80s, got him in a DeLorean, shoved him in 2019. He is that good, and he's a good wrestler. So it's not like it's not an incomplete package. He's going to be the top heel in the business if AEW works out. And if anything, if it doesn't work out, he should be working everywhere else. Yeah. I don't think I'm out of line saying that about Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
And Maxwell Jacob Friedman is the total package, if you're, no pun intended, if you're creating a professional wrestler that you want fans to boo. Not only does he look good, great wrestling body, the attitude, the facial expressions, the promos, I can't say anything more than you already said, Dan. He is legitimately the best heel in professional wrestling in any company. There's MJ and everybody else, period.
On that note, your Jungle Boy was in here just a little while ago, and he mentioned that your promo what he thought was going to be a shorter promo went a little long. Are there any repercussions for you backstage if you take too much time on a microphone?
Shorter? Longer? I'm sorry.
He wasn't anticipating for you to...
Let me explain something to you, okay, little man?
Okay.
I can literally talk as long as I goddamn well please because I'm the star attraction. I'm going to be the face of this company. That's why Tony Khan and my best friend, don't know if you ever heard of him, Cody Rhodes, allow me to do whatever the I want to do. It's because I'm MJF and you're not. I'm out.
I'm still talking.
It just screams old school, and mixing old school with present time is not bad. I know a lot of people when somebody brings up, I want it like it was in the old days. Some people don't have great intentions, but this is every good intention. The fan like that. I mean, that's 5 minutes of gold. We only played a couple seconds on air, but that's every time he talks, he's gold. That segment with Bret Hart in the ring with the title belt at Double or Nothing, and he referenced the guy attacking him at the Hall of Fame. Oh, no, Bret, look out, somebody's behind you. Just kidding. That's gold. He is so good. I don't care that I'm blowing him on air here. He's amazing. And if anybody hasn't seen him yet or disagrees, I implore you to look and search out more MJF. He's worlds away from everybody else right now.
What sets him apart from everyone else, not just with his look and his work in the ring, he's quick. That's something that only when I think of wrestlers that are quick as far as wit and can with their promos, only managers come to mind. Only Bobby, only Jim, only Paul Heyman I've ever seen guys that are that quick. MJF is the only wrestler I've seen that's that quick. That can stop on a dime. That can deliver a promo without stuttering, without fumbling over his words, or without getting lost in his thought. It's just the way the mind works is amazing. It's such a gift that is taken for granted in professional wrestling now. I don't care how good you look. If I don't, you got to be able to talk me into the seat, into buying a ticket. I would pay to see this man, even if I didn't know what he did.
Yeah. That's right there is the answer.
Yeah.
And every time I'm like, because you go watch a lot of wrestling, you're like, well, maybe not. Mm-hmm. Then you see him talk again. It's like, it's just astounding. I just wanted to, I don't think we could put him over anymore. I don't think we could put him over any more than he already has himself, but it doesn't do justice. Look, seek out MJF, folks. And with that, sir, I think our time has run to the end this week.
Our time has run dry. Yes.
And my mouth has run dry. I'm going to go wet that mouth. Craig, where can people follow you, sir?
They can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Liggeons, CraigLiggeons.
The VOC Nation Radio Network, currently hosting the HIAC Talk Radio Network, is at the VOC Nation Radio Network on iTunes. When you want to look up the podcast, thebradyhicks.com is where you can find all the links. The HIAC Talk Radio podcast is on all social media platforms at HIAC Talk Radio. I know I made it real hard for everybody to follow it. It's right there. Just search it. It's all us right there. You follow me on Twitter. I am Dan Calachico at DanLaw83, and I would appreciate if you like, share, subscribe, and for all that is holy, just press play. For Craig Liggeons, I am the above average comedian, Dan Calachico. We will see you next week. Have a wonderful one.